Everyone, Judge Andrew Napolitano is here for Judging Freedom. Today is Tuesday, April 15th. Today is Tuesday, April 16th. Today is Tuesday, April 15th. One of those days. It's a bad day, April 15th in America. 2025. Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski is here, but first this. While the markets are giving us whiplash, have you seen the price of gold? It's soaring. In the past 12 months, gold has risen to more than $3,000 an ounce. I'm so glad I bought my gold. It's not too late for you to buy yours. The same experts that predicted gold at $3,200 an ounce now predict gold at $4,500 or more in the next year. What's driving the price higher? Paper currencies. All around the world, they are falling in value. Big money is in panic as falling currencies shrink the value of their paper wealth. That's why big banks and billionaires are buying gold in record amounts. As long as paper money keeps falling, they'll keep buying, and gold will keep rising. So do what I did. Call my friends at Lear Capital. You'll have a great conversation, and they'll send you very helpful information. Learn how you can store gold in your IRA tax and penalty free, or have it sent directly to your doorstep. There's zero pressure to buy, and you have a 100% risk-free purchase guarantee. It's time to see if gold is right for you. Call 800-511-4620, 800-511-4620, or go to LearJudgeNap.com and tell them your friend the judge sent you. Colonel Karen, welcome here. Welcome here, my dear friend. Apologies for that botched introduction. Some people thought I was trying to be funny, but it's just one of those days. Anyway, you're here. You have a piece. I saw the name of this, and I thought, what the heck is she writing about? Israel and feral pigs. So let me get right to it. Do the Israelis release wild pigs and wild boar onto Palestinian lands in order to destroy their agricultural availability?
Yeah, to do that, and to also just as a to terrorize, because those pigs, and Americans know about feral pigs. Good much of America, the Midwest and South, they're impacted by feral pigs, and they do a ton of damage. We're quite familiar with what they do, but they can get big. And they can also, because if they lose their fear of humans, they'll mess with, you're worried about your children. So it is a terror tool as well as an environmental destruction tool. And yes, they've been releasing them for years and years. Now, I did not know that they did this. I didn't know that the IDF did it, and I didn't know that the settlers did it. I actually didn't think there were very many pigs in Israel or Palestine. I don't associate pigs with that part of the world. Because they're not consumed generally. So you wouldn't have them like we do in America. Some pigs get loose, but these pigs are purposely released. And I read an article just prior to writing that article. I was shocked, but it turns out they've been doing it for years and years. Well over a decade, probably 2 decades. This has been a practice, and it's unenvironmental. It's stupid. It's cruel. It's hypocritical. I mean, it's a desperate type cruel thing to do.
Well, both religions, Judaism and Islam, shun pork. In fact, as I understand it, they more than shun it, they forbid it for a variety of reasons, ancient and traditional. But I don't criticize it or even comment on it. It's a fact. Yeah. What does the IDF do? Does the IDF protect the pigs?
Well, they do 2 things. They protect the settlers when the settlers are releasing the pigs. At times, the IDF itself, as a military organization, releases pigs. At least that's what the data says. And then the way they protect the pigs is, of course, if they run back onto a settler's property, they can shoot them, because obviously the IDF and the settlers are both heavily armed with a variety of weapons. But the Palestinians, of course, are not allowed to have weapons. They're not allowed to be armed. So they can't defend themselves against the pigs. They can't do anything about the pigs. I mean, I presume they could trap them somehow, but Anyway, yes, the IDF defends the pigs from Palestinians by disarming the Palestinians, which of course is a very, the disarming of Palestinians and the fact that they're not allowed to bear arms. I mean, this obviously has been going on forever. I mean, these people aren't free in any sense of the word.
Right. Your piece about the feral pigs obviously uses it as a metaphor, and it is a metaphor for the Israelis are European urbanite colonizing dominant over the agrarian Palestinians who have lived there for 3,000 years.
Yeah, that's right. And when we think of wild boar, we don't think of feral pigs necessarily. I mean, the word can apply to both, but when we think of wild boar and hunting wild boar, we can think back to the 17 and 1800s, maybe early 1900s in Europe, when it was, before the modern age. And, the kings and the noblemen would have great properties and great forests where they would use for hunting. And the serfs and the peasants and whoever was doing all the agricultural work were not allowed to, also not allowed to be armed and not allowed to hunt these pigs. It was kind of a high class sport, this shooting of wild boar and other wild animals that only the high elites could do. And you see this kind of a arrogance that we see in Israel, that they can have whatever they want. And it really, everyone else lives to serve them. All other, the people need to do the work that we require of them, but otherwise they need to stay out of our way. We will make the rules. And that is a European, that is really something that resonates as a European attitude, an attitude of arrogance, an attitude of class, class separation. And the Jews in Europe for years and years and centuries weren't necessarily connected with the hierarchy. They weren't necessarily connected with the ruling classes. In some ways they were, but in most ways they weren't. But there's always, and we see this in America too, this desire to be that what you have envied in terms of class. The nouveau riche, right? We talk about the nouveau riche. Why? Because we don't really give them full credit. But I think I see with as many things that we see with the Zionist project is that they want to establish something that's really artificial in many ways. And they're establishing it on an agrarian land that was filled with agrarian people. And it's just one more way of viewing the brutality of Zionism, I think.
Our friend and colleague Max Blumenthal regularly, must say this several times a day, refers to Israel as an apartheid state. I gather you agree with that, and the evidence is strong to demonstrate that.
Yeah, well, you can't make roads for people to walk on and build walls to enclose them and deprive them of food and count their calories and make sure that concrete is not does not come into their country so they can build anything. I mean, that is an apartheid. In fact, in some ways, it's probably more egregious than some of the apartheids that we recognize from history. It is 21st century apartheid, which is quite unacceptable. Maybe 200 years ago, we could say, oh, that's how it should be. Well, that's not how it should be. And where we are now, it is appallingly unacceptable. And I really don't get why we're not seeing more pushback from the global leaders. I mean, obviously, Trump and his crew are very pro-Zionist, but the rest of the world's leaders have more power than I think they're exercising here to constrain and to punish Israel for the excess in their response. I mean, you can say, well, they're defending themselves. They say that, but there's also a kind of a balance, a reciprocity of what you do based on what was done to you. Somebody throws a rock at you, you don't murder their whole family and burn their country to the ground. You don't do that. It is, we have a philosophy, European philosophy. I'm sure the Asian and Chinese philosophies, all around the world have a sense of balance in how you will respond to wrongdoing. You know, in that article, you know, certainly if our neighbors were releasing feral hogs on their neighbor's property, people would take immediate action. Of course, we're all armed here in America, so we would shoot those hogs, we would capture those hogs, we would stop the problem. And if it continued, then we have ways to step up the response to deal with our neighbors so that we can still live together as neighbors. This is not being done in Israel. You know, this is they don't see the Palestinians as people at all, really, and it's very evil. And I'm surprised that more leaders in the world don't see it, because the people of the world, the common people of the world, see it very clearly.
Let me talk to you about peace negotiations. The person leading both of them, I guess there's more than two right now, in behalf of the United States, even though he was referred to in the Oval Office and on national television by the Secretary of State as Ambassador Witkoff. I don't know, maybe he was being snarky. Maybe Marco Rubio doesn't get along with him, wishes he wasn't there. Maybe he was mocking him, but he's not an officer of the United States. He's not been nominated by the president. He's not been investigated by the FBI. He's not been confirmed by the Senate. We all know that. He may be a very bright guy. He's the guy that's leading these negotiations. He spent 5 hours with President Putin the other day, and then said we talked about a lot more than Ukraine. He's been going back and forth in the Middle East, negotiating what he hopes will be some sort of a ceasefire in return for an exchange of hostages between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Do the neocons even want peace, or do they want both of these wars to go on? Do the neocons and Zionists around Trump want the Israelis to rid Gaza of all Palestinians and want the Ukrainians to keep fighting the Russians in the hope they can drain the Russian military and drive President Putin from office?
Yeah, and they want one more thing, too. They want the conflict in the Middle East to expand to include an altercation, a bombing, a destruction of Iran. So the neoconservatism, as it has evolved since the 80s, is really, it's pro-Israel, of course. In the Middle East, it's all policy hinges on what Israel expects or needs or wants. It is also completely, and it's been this way since the 80s. I mean, even Ronald Reagan had to deal with this. They are extraordinarily anti-Russian. So these are the factors. These are the native ingredients of neoconservatism. So those haven't changed. So to answer your question, yeah, they want Ukraine to continue to be some sort of a barrier, an annoyance, a cost enhancer for Russia, and they want Gazans to be gone. They support the Zionist project, which is to expand Israel to, I guess, from the river to the sea. Well, I don't know if I'll get in trouble for saying that, but that's what the Israelis want to do. And I think the Zionists in America and certainly in Washington agree with that. They really wish the Palestinian problem would go away. It is a problem to them. It's not an issue of, well, whose land is it? Can we do a two-state? No, they don't want that. It is a problem they want eliminated. And this is why another shipment of weapons and bombs have been sent to Israel. And we are facilitating them solving that problem. Neoconservatives support that. And they also, of course, the thing that they really have their eye on is the same as what it's been for 30 years. They want Iran to be nuked, apparently, which, again, not rational, not realist. It's neoconservatism 101.
Mr. Witkoff is also, much to the dismay of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, negotiating directly with the Iranians. We don't know if President Trump told Prime Minister Netanyahu before he was going to announce publicly that Witkoff would be meeting with the Iranians, or if Netanyahu learned about it the same time the rest of us did, as it came out of Donald Trump's mouth. But Netanyahu seemed somewhat startled, and his response was nonsensical. over the weekend, the Secretary of Defense was asked about all of this. Take a listen to what he said. Tell me if you think the threat to use my department is an effective way to negotiate. Cut number 9, Chris.
He's dead serious that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. He's said that for 20 years. He's been consistent. That is clear. But he's also dead serious that if we can't figure this out at the negotiating table, then there are other options, to include my department, to ensure that Iran never has a nuclear bomb. We hope we never get there. We really do, Maria. But what we're doing with the Houthis and what we're doing in the region, we've shown a capability to go far, to go deep, and to go big. And again, we don't want to do that. But if we have to, we will, to prevent the nuclear bomb in Iran's hands.
So 2 things. According to Ritter, McGregor, and Pepe Escobar, who's physically been there, they did not go big, deep, and they were not effective in Yemen. But the threat to use my department, obviously referring with a little smile to the Department of Defense, to what? To coerce Iran into negotiating in a manner pleasing to the American government. I mean, why didn't she say to him, and what would he have said if she did ask him, well, Pete, all right, well, Mr. Secretary, why is it that Israel can have a nuclear weapon and Iran cannot? How would he have answered that?
I know. It's a good, somebody needs to ask that question of these folks, because, when we look at the countries that have nuclear weapons, Israel is always on that list. It doesn't matter that they haven't formally acknowledged them. It is well known. They actually want people, especially their neighbors, to know that they have these nuclear weapons, and yet first off, Israel won't join a non-proliferation treaty. They will not allow inspections, but they expect others to do that. And then when you look at Iran, our own national intelligence estimate, it wasn't the estimate, but the report that was given just a couple weeks ago,
right,
indicated that they're not enriching past what you need for energy. They're not making a bomb. There's the political statement is consistent with their performance, that they are not interested in having a bomb. Now, I imagine, as the Iranians have said, as any country would say, they're not interested in being dictated to by the United States about what their defense policy should look like. But they don't even have a bomb. So this obsession that the neocons have, certainly the Netanyahu has, to basically dictate to the world how they will behave, when no one is allowed to dictate to Israel or America how we will behave.
Right.
It's not tolerable.
But the clip we just saw of Pete Hegseth, he must know what the national intelligence estimate is. This is a consensus of his own Defense Intelligence Agency, my department, as well as the CIA and other American intelligence agencies. And if the U.S. intelligence agencies have concluded this, that means that MI6 has concluded it. And if MI6 has concluded it along with the U.S., then Mossad has concluded it. And if Mossad has concluded it, you're still with me, they must have told Netanyahu and his colleagues of this. So the argument that Iran is going to have a bomb, 20 years ago, he told the UN they would have the bomb in 2 weeks. 10 years ago, he told the UN they'd have the bomb in 1 week. Here we are 20 years later from the original declaration, no bomb. Is it all a farce?
Yeah, well, I mean, that particular story is a farce. And also, increasingly, Hegseth himself, as Secretary of Defense, is coming across as a tool, really, of Trump rather than a leader of the Pentagon. Now, he's obviously in charge of the Pentagon, but he is communicating, I guess, what Trump wants to communicate. Trump is all about his various messages, and it may serve Trump to say, yeah, I've got this hot dog, young, not too bright Secretary of Defense, and he's ready to unleash his department on you guys, and I wish I could hold him back. I mean, it could be he's just playing that role. I wouldn't put it past any of them, but certainly I would not assume that Hegseth has even read or listened to the intelligence status that was briefed to Congress. I'm not 100% sure he is paying close attention to that. I think he owes his position clearly to Trump, and Trump needs somebody completely loyal to him at the Pentagon, because Pentagon is filled with snakes, filled with swamp creatures. I mean, always has been, but certainly never. It's very, very difficult to deal with that, and they're dangerous. The Pentagon is dangerous, combined with the CIA and the intelligence. It is dangerous to a sitting president. It's dangerous to things that Trump wants to protect. So Hegseth is his guy. What he says, it's a part of Trump's strategy. I would be more interested in what Witkoff is saying, and we're not really hearing what Witkoff is saying. Right. And Kellogg is another example. Kellogg's a military guy, kind of neoconish, kind of old thinking, anti-Russian. He's out there saying things, but nobody's paying any attention to him. And I think really,
he's really saying nonsense.
Yes.
Over the weekend, he came out with some map showing the division of Ukraine the way Berlin was divided in 1945. I mean, does he really think that Vladimir Putin would even spend a millisecond considering that in negotiations? That is just absurd.
Yeah. He's I don't know what his function is, but because Trump hasn't completely shut him up, then he obviously has a function, which may be kind of an outlier. And I think maybe Hegseth may fit into this category as well. Trump still appears, for all of the insanity coming out of Washington and the White House, he still appears to want peace. He appears focused on trying to, in his own way, fix what's wrong with America, which is to say, put America first. He's working on that in a strange way, and it's probably not going to work. I don't know. But I think his intentions are very close to what they always were. I don't think Trump has had an about face in any way, shape, or form from what he has always thought and wanted to do. So I have to look at some of these people as tools. And certainly Hegseth, Kellogg, there's a number of them. They are serving Trump. In what way, it's not clear. The people we're not hearing from, those are the ones that we should pay closer attention to.
Right. Colonel Karen, thank you very much. Always a pleasure, whether we're talking about feral pigs or life and death. Thank you. Thank you for these unique sort of brainiac conversations we're able to have, whether I have the date correct or not. But most enjoyable. Thanks for accommodating my schedule. We'll see you again next week.
Sure enough, Judge. Thank you.
Of course. Coming up at 3:30 this afternoon, Colonel Douglas McGregor. At 4 o'clock, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, Judge Napolitano for Judging Freedom.